This here is the house of one of our authors, but it was only his house for 1 year at the age of 7. His father illustrated the cover of the one book he did for France. Who is this dynamic duo? Stay tuned. Hey everybody, Rob here again. So, just who was this writer? Was it Albert Augustus Jr. or John Davidson? Was it Charles English, George Fredericks, or Fred MacDonald? The answer is yes. These are all pseudonyms of Charles Nuetzel, and that's not nearly all of them. Charles was born in San Francisco in 1934. In our correspondence, he recalls at the age of 4 or 5 moving to an apartment on Fulton Street near the beach and the windmills in Golden Gate Park. He remembers a fun house across from the Cliff House restaurant, which would have been the long-gone Playland at the beach. In 1942, shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor, his family moved again to a new house in Millbrae, a suburb to the south. That is, the house at the beginning of the video. The following year, they headed for West Los Angeles. Charles was a sci-fi fan, and you can find his letters in magazines like Imagination. He even had his own zine called Space Warper, which was remarkable for its cover, which was designed by his father, Albert Nuetzel, a commercial artist who signed his works with 2 L's to balance out the N. He primarily painted movie house lobbies with coming attractions. A teenage Charles, while looking for Edgar Rice Burroughs titles in a bookstore, was asked by a man, "Have you ever read Ray Bradbury?" It was Ray Bradbury himself asking the question. With his sci-fi network, Charles got his father doing covers for sci-fi books and magazines. This was negotiated by agent Forrest J Ackerman. It didn't take long before Charles found work through Forry, writing shorts for men's magazines. A western called Plague of the Past appeared in France's Gusto. I found 9 other stories in France magazines. In Charles' memoir, Pocketbook Writer, Confessions of a Commercial Hack, he writes that while Ray Bradbury burned his first 1,000,000 words, his first 1,000,000 were actually published. His first novel, Hot Cargo, was written as John Davidson, and it launched Epic Books. It is his favorite, mainly because it was the first one he sold. Illicit Bed, written as Fred MacDonald, was his sole release for France Books. As mentioned, his dad did the cover. It was released several years later as Jean, the name of the main character, a scorned woman who moved from California to New York, where she begins a relationship with a woman. She returns to California in fear that she has become a lesbian, hoping a man can straighten her out. I won't spoil the ending, but a decade earlier, in books like Spring Fire by Vin Packer, aka Mary Jane Meeker, Jean would have either been married off, institutionalized, or dead by her own hand. In the late 1950s, the female characters in lesbian pulp fiction penned by women like Valerie Taylor, aka Velma Nisela Young, and Anne Bannon, aka Anne Weldy, started to have better outcomes. So, was Charles writing pro-lesbian pulp fiction? In the later 60s, Nuetzel finally got to publish what he always wanted to write, often influenced by Edgar Rice Burroughs, with titles like Raiders of Numis. He began packaging books, meaning he partnered with various publishers, Book Company of America is just one example, and provided them with text, covers, and cover blurbs. Often the text was his own, and the art was his father's. This is my new friend, Bill Pronzini, and his wife, Marcia Muller. They write books. Sometimes they even write them together. I just read The Snatch by Bill. Written in 1971, it's the first in the Nameless Detective series. I highly recommend it, and if you're not a collector of vintage books, it's available new as well as in ebook formats. It's a terrific mystery set in San Francisco and the peninsula to the south, where Charles Nuetzel lived back in 1942. It involves a kidnapping and a ransom. Bill collects books. There's a few behind him here. I don't know where he keeps the other 25,000. Bill has some books by Nuetzel, which he shared. Check them out. Some of these covers I've never seen before. Wow, Thanks so much for sharing these, Bill. Here's a book Nuetzel packaged for his buddy Bill Stroop. Charles is the one that first told us about Stroop and Stroop's best buddy coming out west together and having been mentored by a rather notable author back home. Greg and I have our suspicions Stroop is at France, as his buddy clearly was. More on all that to come. I just picked up this copy. Bill Pronzini got one too. By the way, besides detective fiction, Bill writes westerns and sometimes a little sci-fi, as far back as '68. He even confessed to have co-written a little Sin in the '60s, but let's not embarrass him, shall we? Charles wrote the novelization of the 1966 film Queen of Blood, directed by Curtis Harrington and starring Basil Rathbone and Dennis Hopper. His agent, Forey, had a bit part in the film and wrote the intro to the book. Being a Greenleaf book, the sci-fi story is obviously sexed up, so despite his moral code, Nuetzel mixed sin and sci-fi for a third time. There's a link to the Queen of Blood trailer down below. You don't want to know how many of these are Charles. About 15 years ago, Wildside and Borgo Presses began reprinting a good portion of Charles' work, so it's widely available. He even revamped the Numa series with co-author Heidi Garrett. Jean, née Illicit Bed, has seen a slightly rewritten third printing. Charles was nice enough to write the foreword to the book about France Books Greg and I are presently pitching. Thanks, Charles, and see you next time, gang.